Now I would like to welcome these two lovely people from the wonderful University of the Aegean, which is probably the university I would like to be at most because it's spread over the Greek islands. So I hope you bring some of that flair to us.
Thank you very much. Thank you for the introduction. So now, please everybody pray that our slide share works.
Okay, this is a title. It is a learning journey, but sometimes was a very alarming journey, but very, very interesting. So here we are. Talk about the context a bit. What's this? Okay.
It's fine.
Yeah. Okay, it is a department currently called Department of Product and Systems Design Engineering. We feel that we should mention that this is a current title of the department, but as far as we are concerned, still falls short of capturing the richness of its evolution. And it is, okay, we have to say that it is, will always be true. We hope on this because design is continuously evolving and it is still complex. So, do I go this way? So, the labels product and engineering also reflect the trajectory of the domain of design for us. Yes, I have to. Since they were current in the problematic situations which needed actionable attention. We have to say, most importantly, they represent common understanding of what design is and does. And this issue still is very challenging to overcome, still in many places. We reflect on the genesis, role, grounding, and management of our design department over the last 25 years. There are some too many, but it will take another 25 years easily to actually get into a stable, steady state, which I hope it doesn't happen. Steady state is very not exactly what systemic thinking does. The evolution of its curriculum will describe the flow and currents that have prevailed for us. They include fights for the adoption of the underpinnings. We can mention those three things. Pluralism, not dogmatism, is something which is very difficult to actually push through in a transdisciplinary environment. Holistic systemic, not reductionistic, it's got some background from other domains quite a bit, and so does the previous one. As far as the understandings, the recognition of the centrality of constructivism is very, very important, but it's not always easy to assume that people go for it. Such a venture felt justified because of the increasing acknowledgement of the complexity, and that is very, very important. Complexity is so far dirty word. It was when we started, and it stayed dirty word for some time, while it's the most beautiful thing to accept. On global challenges, which if you do, if you look at global issues these days, are all complex and cannot be ignored anymore. And the interest of the design world to play a role to see these challenges as tractable and also the design of abilities and tools to deal with. So, that's what we're talking about. So ever since the 70s, I must say that coming from OR and management and all this relatives to them, the widespread adoption of phrases such as tackling or dealing with problems is evidence, or evidence the doubts about the potential of various disciplines to solve real-life problems. Solve is a prohibited word. Okay. That realization brought us to the point where holistic system notions and terms such as interconnectedness, which is very important, as very good. You know, divergence, variety, columns, hierarchies, complexity, resilience, and more are accepted as appropriate to ground efforts towards designing interventions into complex problematic situations. So here we are. Expanding, can I just remove this?
If we can pick it up.
Sorry,
we're getting the controls
we can't see your controls, but
controls are coming down across the screen.
Yeah. Now, these are also important realizations. When we came here, and for some time, we had to fight for expanding the design from a descriptor to a powerful domain. Not manufacturing design, not whatever design interior, but design, because it's robust and it's developed really into one really powerful domain, as I said. Design appears to be a natural candidate to engage holistic systems thinking and its applicability. Design is a complex, transdisciplinary domain which is philosophically and practically challenging on its own. And of course, the word transdisciplinary or transdisciplinarity will encounter it quite a bit again in this talk. We felt that bringing some new thinking, such as systems thinking, holistic attitudes, will make the domain more capable of capturing the richness of design evolving wider character. As the whole effort we have little part here today is saying and trying to do for it. Then I have to go. No. Yes, I'll try that. Sorry.
Try the screen.
Okay. Two screens. I don't know which one it is. Anyway, designing the design department 1997. Our own personal journeys formed our resistance to simply solving and shaping and shaped our ability to simply avoid this solving, as we said before, and shaped our ability to understand and utilize the offerings of the richness of the design world. My trajectory, academic trajectory, forced me, allow me to say this word, because we went through various stages of fights with relative domains. And to be able to appreciate the power of variety, difference, change, evolution in the path from hard to soft, and adopt transdisciplinarity. Jenny's awareness of the evolving potential of systemic design was applied to her research in service information, information and accessibility. And other younger members of the community joined us. Such efforts take time, but they're rewarding when dealing with complex problematic situations without simplifying them to death. I'm sorry about that, but I felt this really killing the solutions, or dealing with them. Still, towards the end of 1990, the opportunity arose to create new departments in Greek universities, the state ones, they're all state, still are. The circumstance was significantly positive for the forward-looking University of the Aegean, whose members supported the promotion and implementation of new ideas. So we took the decision to go ahead fighting for a new department of design at the University of the Aegean. And problems. When you decide, make decisions like that, problems just come in your door, There were a variety of problems in trying to create a design department as we envisaged initially. Arts and design was the major label. And that was a label to be negotiated with authorities everywhere, specialists everywhere. Still in the 90s, the closest main successful thriving examples internationally were schools of arts and design engineering. We're talking about quite a few years ago. There were no precedents of design departments in Greece. That meant our proposal should be thoroughly prepared in relation to the understanding of the era. New departments created in state universities had to be approved by relevant committees, and we had to convince them. No more comment on this. Only difficulties. The general atmosphere for growth in academia in Greece had the following characteristics related to our story. Some favorable, some not. The University of the Aegean was, from its founding, 84, committed to introducing innovative domains of study emerging on the global stage, but not significantly or not at all represented in the Greek academia. That is the positive thing. And other universities were not feeling the same, really. Subjects of proposed new departments are mainly judged by established interests or guilds, members of which are represented by specific existing relevant disciplines, etc. And this translates into the protection of professional rights. That was quite important. We have spent a lot of time for this. I was fortunate to be involved at the University of the Aegean, University of the Aegean, quite a bit. At the beginning of the formation of new departments, one in Chios, the island of Chios, that is, business administration, 1987, two in Samos, applied mathematics 89 and informatics 97. Cumulatively gaining experience in creating and building new units of the University of the Aegean. The result was the adoption of the vision of the university as well, allow me the accuracy, as a structural coupling with the Aegean area. That is personal comment. The diaspora of the island units means that the polymorphic structure with its beautiful variety and complexity like the Aegean cannot be represented culturally and by extension academically by a part of it, small part of the Aegean. One must accept it initially as a creative amalgam, well, a whole with a W, not a whole. But it is 1980 campaign to convince Ministry of Education and other for special bodies that it was the right time to create design departments for education. It was then the university was preparing proposals for new departments, one within the network of School of Fine Arts, no decision on location. Syros, as a potential location of new university unit, was absent from the University of the Aegean plans and also from the ministers. In the Aegean area, the only prefecture without University of the Aegean unit was the Kyklades. Its capital, Syros, with its unique industrial tradition, was a good fit for such a department while bringing the culture of the Kyklades to the university. So, this is about the promotion. I'm sure Birger realizes
I love it.
how important it is. Holding the wheel is the then chancellor. And of course, he was positive, and that helped a lot. The others are crew members of the youngsters who, except me, of course, was next to the chancellor, not such a young person, but to help promote the idea of design department. Sorry for staying too long here. I like the blue. So we started a two-pronged effort to create product systems design department and to do it in Hermopolis, which is the capital of Syros. Our proposal for the Department of Design, without a descriptor, was variously criticized as madness or praised as bold. After much discussion at the university and ministry level, a proposal was approved for the creation and in Syros, the creation of the design and in Syros. Believe me, we burned a lot of the soles of our shoes quite a bit walking in various places to convince. Now, in the map, as you can see, I think it's quite useful to see that we're spread on 6 islands, and the culture is C1, of course, Aegean culture, but the various units are quite different in existential questioning of the people there. Cirrus, you can see what Cirrus is. We also added the European map to see how small, but it does. We do hope it will leave a mark, whatever the size of it is. Naming the department. That is also very interesting. Issue over the naming. Design not immediately recognizable in Greek academia. Although design departments emerging on a global scene were emerging at an increasing rate. As a result, we proposed the name Graphic Arts and Systems Design because graphic arts was recognizable, but we felt again, we were assured that there was a possibility that the name could be changed after its foundation and prove that we are different. Of course, the sister departments in graphic arts reacted and much energy and gray matter were expended to convince them that it was totally different department from theirs. Still, all this worked. Ah, dear. I have to say that the biggest problem that we could consider this as a summary of the above, although it doesn't look like, convincing the two big problems. First, convincing of the academic environment, then and now, that we were not endangering other competing disciplines in terms of resources or whatever, yes, and students. Takes effort, but that's important comments, I feel. But it does get easier as competitors begin to understand each other and accept complementarity. The difficult is the second one, which is transdisciplinarity, which is difficult to pass it to such a rich domain as we were planning to include in our department. It is the more difficult problem. The Babel metaphor is very destructive and takes time even if acknowledged from the outset. It felt untreated, untreatable and untreated. It leads to lost opportunities to produce new relevant knowledge, as well as ways to discovering approaches, methods, etc., to tackle the complexity. That is because, if I could give an example, we do have engineers, we have systemic people, we have arts, and one has to actually make sure that they can talk and one feel for the other. Understand is quite difficult, but the hope of transdisciplinarity is always that the new knowledge, designed without a descriptor, that is, will evolve from all this. Yet, very new knowledge gained from the adoption of transdisciplinarity can be supportive when facing complex concerns, such as those of design. Adaptability is key. Systemic thinking is a natural and fruitful ground for this emergence. Still, we're fighting for it, but now it is accepted at the current stage of the department. And every time a new person comes in, things go back a little bit still. The Department of Graphic Arts, Systems Design and Cirrus. Oh yes, sorry.
No, that's okay.
I started.
You can keep going.
No, I don't want. I don't want, because actually, if we see how we finished, is the two things I don't know. We didn't know how we can make them to look more frightful as they are here, but we're fighting and we're winning, I think. So Jenny, sorry.
Yes, so I'm just going to continue a little bit with a narration of things that happened, so a bit the historical background. So we've more or less reached the year 2000 in our story. So we had our first intake of students of graphic arts and systems design in Syros in October 2000. But of course, the curriculum was designed from the beginning for product and systems design, and that title has stayed with us. And the graduate profile was for a wide interdisciplinary background of supportive subjects. The people in IDEO, Tim Brown, had not yet talked about a T-shaped individual, a T-shaped designer, but we were talking about people having a very broad background and then maybe specializing when they worked, but when they left us, but having that background there. So we wanted to cover a wide range of current subjects that we saw useful for design. And so we have these three subjects: human-computer interaction, computer-aided design, and organizational design, as it was called then. That did change its name. And very quickly, that's just, you know, some little bits of historical artifacts. So this was the local newspaper announcing the first intake of students with an article about the Department of Graphic Arts and showing the whole study program. And also there were plenty of newspapers here showing a very young Yanis, as he was then, and talking about how he felt it was an innovative department, and with the people on the island and more generally in the area should get behind it. And we have to say that they did. And then just before the start of that intake in October, we held a 2-day workshop with key figures, and this was a very big boost to our morale, because some of the participants who came along, they'll be familiar to RSD audiences, I think. It was Nigel Cross, who was lately the editor of Design Studies, Jonas Wolfgang, that Bill was already mentioned, that he met him early on, Chris Rust, Tom Hewitt. And we also invited, but they couldn't come due to other commitments, and that was Enzio Manzini, Ken Friedman, Richard Buchanan. And all of these people didn't just say, sorry, no, can't make it, but they actually sent us various documents and supporting material off their own back, which was very encouraging. And so we are very grateful, and we always, when we bump into these people, we always remind them about coming to Syros or about the help they gave us. And one question that was asked several times during this curriculum workshop was whether systems thinking should be an underpinning of the design curriculum at undergraduate as well as at postgraduate levels. And again, that was always very encouraging, because this group felt that it was a natural a pairing, if you like, or not pairing because it was the underpinning. So that was our famous workshop, which you can see was just discussion, and presentation, discussion, organized by the Department of Graphic Arts, but for the profile and curriculum content of university level studies in the area of product and systems design, lest somebody make a mistake and think this was the Graphic Arts department. And very quickly, a very old picture where I think you can see on the left, there's Jonas Wolfgang, Chris Rust, Tom Hewitt. The gentleman at the end is Hans Christensen, whom some people may have met from Delft. Nigel Cross's wife, Nigel Cross, that very young Yanis, and Tom Hewitt's son. And then go on here. So this curriculum, what did it look like? Well, another bit of documentation. Remember, this is 2000, and students aren't going on the web very much. They don't have mobile phones, or rather they don't have smartphones. They have maybe mobile phones, but not all of them. And we certainly don't have all this information on the internet. So I just really want to point out that we had a wide range of subjects. This is our first year. The first and second semester of 13 weeks. The weekly program was 37 hours, contact hours with students, or as they like to say in England, bums on seats. And the subjects went from mathematics to drawing and colour. We had students who had to actually learn to draw. They'd never done any kind of drawing in school at all. Design and technology, history, informatics. Many students had not come from the streams where they'd done any kind of, apart from very basic computer stuff, they hadn't really done very much. English language, of course, and our famous Introduction to Design Theory and Methodology, which was totally swayed to systemic thinking, what we call then systemic design, but systemic thinking, we should really call it. And just a few notes, because we had a lot of freedom. The course remains a 5-year one, it's a long one, and there's no BSc, MSc, even though we comply with the Bologna Agreement, the EU's Bologna Agreement, but it's an equivalent to a BSc and an MSc, but you can't get out after 3 years. You have to do the whole 5 years. And the students pass many courses, approximately some 50 core and elective courses. It's an awful lot to earn their X, their European credit transfers. And typically each course carries only a few X, between 4 to 6, while the studios go from between 2 to 8 X. And then the final project and diploma thesis, which actually is an MSc thesis, is only 30 X for us, but that's because we've got such a wide range of subjects. And the last year, there's a practical placement for 1 semester. So the students have to go out and work on some design in a workplace setting, and a 1 semester diploma thesis, but that typically takes about a year. And the timetable is changing. Each year it gets a little bit less contact hours to allow more personal study time and project work time, because of course the whole environment has changed, and students are no longer needed to be guided and not having a lot of access to material. They find plenty of material available on the web with peer students, etc. So now we've got to 2001, 2002, you'll be pleased to hear, and we have our study guide, which now says very firmly, Department of Product and Systems Design Engineering, and the graphic arts has disappeared. And a quick snapshot 10 years on now, just to show that in every year, there's some courses around systems approaches. So the famous design theory and methodology continues to be there and to have a lot of information about systems design in there. There's an introduction to systems theory, a systems design course, a design management course with systems in it, organizational theory of systems in it, and a complexity of design and interactive processes. And all those are all very much systemically inspired courses. But that was in 2009, 2010. So we're already talking about almost 15 years ago. And just very quickly, we had some slides to show you the department, how we did take over the whole town. This is the town of Syros, and all the colours that you can see are the different groups of buildings that we took over. So the students were going from one end to the other, free minibus provided by the mayor, and really integrating very well with the fabric of the town, which has been very, very instrumental, I think, for them. So we have old buildings. This is a very famous building for Greece and Greek culture, as it's the first secondary level institution in the Kyklades, and our blue skies. We have old warehouses that we were able to transform. We didn't use any new buildings, new furniture, but not new buildings. And of course, when we ran out of space, well, sometimes we had to go other places, you know, and do a little bit more work, intensive work there, team building and such like, and deep discussions when the wind doesn't blow. Of course, we had lots of conferences, workshops, and summer schools with systems at their core. We've just picked out some of those. So a biosemiotics one conference. So we called it a gathering, actually. It was called a gathering. Some summer schools, which were 3 consecutive ones, extremely popular, that we ran for 3 years, and an information design one. Other conferences were, again, there was a lot of systems, at least in the contributions that we made. We hosted these 2 conferences. Guests, of course, and this was Ranulf visiting us in 2009 with the 2009 version of Yanis there, and other members of the department who were very, very instrumental in working on systems in the department. Then we had postgraduate course, I put courses, but actually we only had one in our PhD community. So we had actually started a master's course that we didn't really need for our students because our students were coming out with master's degrees. But we did a conversion course for graduate students from architecture, etc. And it was wildly popular. And we ran that until 2016. About 2016, we were started to find that teaching staff was wanting to have a more typical industrial product design, perhaps an evidence of what Yanis was talking about, trying to keep the balance with things. So there was limited systemic thinking in the taught courses. But we have plans for 2 new master's courses, and one of those we'd like to be on systemic design. And of course, we've had PhD students right from the very beginning, even in the designing of the department. Many have become members of faculty with us or elsewhere, and all of them first learned about systemic thinking in CERUS. So we feel that that's working to distribute the dissemination that you do see around. And finally, on this little whirlwind, just about research projects. So we've always had a very strong presence in European funded research projects as well as national research projects. So starting with the very first one that started at the same time we started the university, so it was a very busy time. We are still with research projects, and the latest ones, SMOTIs, and which is the Human Cities Creative Works, and Heritact, which is still going on, finishes in 26. These are much more, as I think you can see, it's the new European Bauhaus program, much more favorable to design than the first ones were. Back in 2000, designers weren't really very much in evidence in our in the consortiums of these groups. So if you want some more up-to-date information, we've just put this slide in here. Hopefully people can go here, and specifically about the curriculum structure if you want to see that in more detail, and also the study streams, which I emphasize are not specialization. Students must take courses in all 3 streams. You can't just go and do product design or service design. You have to take a selection. And our research laboratories, notably our complex systems and service design laboratory. And then I have a few slides, but I think we're okay for time. Are we okay for time?
Yes, you have the time, absolutely.
So just very quickly, this is from the coal phase, so the actual activity of teaching research, my perspective. So 3 subjects that are currently taught in the department, and which are also often the subjects choose for their final thesis: service design, design for all, or universal design as it's called in Norway, and information design. In each of those subjects, we spend quite a lot of time talking about bringing in how the systems approaches that they've learned, how they can be applied in these subjects and where they help. So just again, in 2019, we've still got a lot of systems teaching, and this is just to situate that these 3 courses I've spoken about are in year 3 and in year 4. And my reflections on this is that as we were talking about this with Yanis, is to say, well, have we succeeded or not? And I have to say that my students, at least, they don't always explicitly reference systems or systemic thinking. So in their work, we see that there's systemic viewpoints, but the students don't actually say, well, I was thinking systemically, or I was using systems methodologies. They just have a big kind of toolbox, and they pick out what they need at the particular time, or what they think is appropriate at the particular time. So in some ways, it's as though the students have absorbed this as the only way to think when they're really at the first stages: think broad, think interconnected, think repercussions. And this is their kind of way, without actually saying, at the moment now I'm using a tool from systems thinking. And the question is this good or bad? And we do see now that as students are working, especially our research students working on the research projects, we see a more conscious attribution to the heritage of systems thinking, which I think is good, because it's again a part of the dissemination. When they're working with social scientists, they may know. When they're working with architects, they may not know. When they're working with engineers, they are certainly much more let's get the data and you know, find solutions. So I think this is a kind of a natural thing, but it also helps that these research projects are the ones where there's a more symbiotic outlook. The actors are not only people in these research projects, but animals, insects, not just living things as well, but nature itself. So not just the building, the heritage buildings or the heritage environment, but the actual balances between them. So that kind of makes me think, well, are we just talking to other students only conscious of systemic thinking when they see it as a sustainability approach? And that does seem to hold true when they're doing something that's around environmental sustainability. There's a lot of discourse in the things they present about things not being transient, but being maintained, or of resilience, understanding repercussions, so not being damaging in the longer or shorter time frame, and fostering the stewardship of the planet. And systemic thinking can be decoupled from the environment, I feel, at least in the subjects that I'm teaching. So human organizational systems and other manifestations that we see in service design, and that should be in design for all. We need, I think, to be perhaps a little bit more conscious and make sure the students understand that it applies there. And I just take the example from universal design, and I know there are some people in this community of RSD who are interested in inclusivity. So I hope they can resonate with what I'm saying. So I've been working in this area for over 25 years, and I see, unfortunately, increasing trends. So we're back with the reduction in the sense of silos and specialisms. So I meet with architects designing buildings, and they specialize in universal design and making it a building wheelchair accessible, and maybe there'll be a few other concessions to some other kind of disabilities, like some signs, signage in Braille. I see an information architect who's specializing in web accessibility and making sure that there's alternatives to images, and that there's plenty of coding that can be picked up by specialist machines, etc. And of course, it's necessary to specialize, but becoming divorced from the whole picture, as we well know, is very detrimental. And you know, we have loads of examples. What use is the accessible building if people can't get into it, if the surroundings are not accessible? And what use is an accessible web page if you can't access the internet-enabled device? So what I see is a tendency to rely on codified knowledge rather than involve people with knowledge, ask the people with disabilities, with lived experiences of problems, for instance, when we're talking about universal design. So the designers really need to get with lived experiences and not keep their distance and then try to piece together bits of different codified knowledge. And a lot of current design misses the whole picture in the sense of, for instance, overlooking the socioeconomic status of the people they design for, which is terrible. You know, students frequently bring me things like walking sticks designed for blind people. And that's wonderful, except that one walking stick will be 10,000 euro. Okay, it works perfectly. It's perfectly designed. It may do the job it's designed for, but it's not for everybody. And of course, they don't see these interconnections or repercussions. And the students do seem to pick up on that, and we can pull back into systemic thinking. So with the help of systemic design, they can explore everything that's available, all that knowledge. It's all over the web. They have no problem to find it, but they need to explore for themselves to make interventions that are sensitive to the environment they're going to be embedded in. And the students, in my hopeful, optimistic world, will perhaps start to bring systemic design to knowledge codifiers, for instance, standardization organizations that I also work with on a volunteer basis. And that's a kind of retirement ambition of mine, because I think that we have there very much siloed thinking just because of the nature of the setup of standards. So that, I think, is the end of my bit of intervention here. And I'll just click on so Yanis can give you some last words, and then we'll be finished.
Yeah. Thank you. Well, I must say, my title there is very important. Very happy to be part of this adventure. The reasons we were all able to participate in the grounding of the evolving role of design as a robust domain and not again as a descriptor. I have to say that all the time. Or characterization of an act of or a process. The design department series concurs with the emerging profile of the design on the international stage, and it does that by representing a deeply transdisciplinary field, being aware of it, that it is deeply transdisciplinary field, with no fear, but a real respect for complexity. These we feel, well, I personally feel that it is very important to embed, to inject into the students' brains, really, and experience. That's what we're trying. I keep sort of being emphatic too much, perhaps, but once you get a new engineer, firstly, who's top to deal with, I don't know, engineering problems and teaching the students, it takes quite, it makes the department sort of rattle a bit, and it has to really get into the mode, into the character, into the culture of the department. These are the difficult things of the head of departments all the time, unless, of course, the head of department is an engineer again who doesn't like systemic views. But anyway, it hasn't happened yet fully. We recognize that the bonding and communication between teachers and course content is a difficult task. What I was saying now before, that requires frequent exchanges of views and sharing of learnings. That I leave it open. How can it be done? You can really sort of pause with some dangerously affecting periods. I would say yes. The creative coexistence of these cognitive inputs has shaped a culture of design that has played an important role in building the general knowledge base and giving graduates the opportunity to appreciate its useful characteristics by applying them throughout the curriculum. Now, the point is, okay, they know how to design cars, so they know chairs or something. But as Jenny was saying before, how does one reach the car or the chair or something? They have to, we fight for that, and we do. We do win most of the time. The charm, but also the need to create creative recognition of concepts such as variety, diversity, questioning, divergence, etc. in the field of design is, for us at least, I think for all of us talking here, is irresistible. Now, we're no longer alone in Greece. That is also an important thing. We could say with confidence and pride that today, despite the great difficulties for the survival of higher education, education departments in Greece and abroad are a department that was established in spite of resistance and disbelief, continues to develop and thrive. It cannot be ignored that there are after so many years, the need to create design departments in Greece has been understood, and at least 2 universities have established new design departments, one of which is the same in title and content as ours. We would like to believe that, as far as the nature of structure of those design departments, we are in the DNA. I hope they stay. They stay for some time. Okay. Existential worries. Okay. Initial external pressure because of existential worries and concerns in other departments and domains were dealt, yes, positively. Some real problems remain and are much more difficult to deal with. These are still with design domain and evident within the department too, which should use the power and creative beauty of transdisciplinarity, which is inherent in design. In our department, most of us consider it as the main source of power to create actionable interventions. Now, we must finish with that. That's very important. In the genesis of the conferences of RSD relating system to design growth in AHO, and of course, the later formal establishment of SDA, it was received with great enthusiasm by many members of the staff at the departments. Being there, almost at the start, ourselves, gave us a lot of justification to pursue systemic design and to survive our initial loneliness. Along with many others, we have to say, and we must say, and we feel like saying, a big thank you to Birger and those pioneers with him, notably Peter, Harold, and Alex, to name but a few. Thank you very much.
Thank you for the invitation for us to tell our side of the story.
Thank you. I think we can close here now.
Thank you so much. With this story that has been undertold and which I really enjoyed to hear. I knew that you have been up to something for a long time, but I didn't know the full depth and span of it. And I think it's really impressive, and that you are very early, and that we have to recognize that. So I open up we still have some minutes for question and discussions. We need a little break before the next session, so we stop in 10 minutes latest. So open for questions. Do we have somebody who wants to say something? If not, I can start with one comment or a question almost. You had this question yourself, when systems thinking becomes internalized almost, it becomes more tacit than explicit, and people just do something that looks like it, or that necessarily not is it, or it can. I mean, my question is, how would it erode? I think I have seen the same phenomena, that some students sort of almost mimic systems thinking, while if you look at it closely, it's quite superficial.
Yes. As you say, that I think you've sorry, yes. Well, I've taken that because it was the slide.
No, can you be heard?
Oh, yes, I can be heard, Birger?
Yes.
Yes, I think you're right. The thing is, it can be superficial, and you have to. One is that the students can be superficial. I mean, we're always going to get those students who you ask them to do certain things and they'll cobble together something to make sure they can pass the course, and they've more or less done it, but you don't think they're getting some deep learning. But there are other ones who really, on the other hand, get so pulled in, they spend their time deeply in the problem that they've seen, in the situation that they've seen, and trying to examine all the aspects of it. And but they know that, they can't stay in that particular part. They must move on, and they must start using and go to some actionable intervention at some point.
Yeah.
A bit of both. And my question is both about what I said, that should we have more explicit, or should it just be part of their design? What's the word? Their set of design approaches and their philosophy of how they go about things, or should it be much more conscious? Well, I think when it's more conscious, they get more tools and they know what to do. They know what to use next. But when it's just, we went and we asked lots of people, and we didn't just ask the users, we asked the carers, for instance, in universal design projects. We ask the carers, we ask the hospital, we ask the users, we ask the people with disabilities, we ask them. It's, you know, and it's kind of, yeah, well, we went through this list of people, we didn't really get anything that we didn't already know. It's some insights that then they start to get more interested in things.
Yeah.
It's a bit of, it's something I can't answer because I'm still struggling with it for teaching.
Some observations I'd like to include there. Every year we find that because it is a 5-year course, the last 2 years, when they start thinking about their dissertations things, there is a maturity which evolves, and they realize, we treated them with this, that if you design a car, to design a car, you need somebody with some reason to move from A to B. For, I don't know, as a sport or carrying your handicapped brother or whatever. Now they realize that they have to have this sort of systemic ability for systemic thinking to reply to this. Because we do have some courses, and they are very popular on systemic and systems. And they have this, in Greek, it's called three sigmas. That's it. In Greek is systems, skepsis on schedíasi, which is design, and skepsis is thinking. So, which is very, very popular.
And if I say that's a 5th year elective course. So that's, sometimes we see that the students who are there, they've really been intrigued by what they've been able to get out of systems, and they're coming there, even though it's a 5th year course, and they probably have already finished collecting the X they need, but they still come along to this course, and it's very popular. We had to close the doors on it. Yannis teachers, we couldn't cope with student numbers. Yes,
there is awareness. There is a fight for awareness.
And if other people have something to add there, I'd be very, very interested to hear.
And one last thing, I would actually, if I was still there, but now I'm sort of teaching as emeritus without too much sort of commitment, but I would actually design now a course called transdisciplinarity, but nothing else.
Yeah, I think we are running executive master's course. I'm also emeritus, so I'm not just getting less involved, but Jonathan is taking over. And this is a course that is open for a variety of backgrounds, everything from, we have a nurse, we have a theater, we have theater people, we have engineers and architects and designers, and this interdisciplinarity aspect is quite evident, but after a while it disappears because they are spending they're spending together time, and they are sort of, I sort of speculate is, can systems approaches become the glue?
Yes.
That's very nice term, the glue, yeah.
Very good metaphor.
Because this gives a common language, sort of. So, yeah. Okay. Thank you very much again. I think we take a small break now.